Of the weekend show. Right now, Nigeria stands at a crucial point in its democratic journey with lots of citizens facing the economic hardship and realities from insecurity to so much more shifting government policies and all of that. So we're having a conversation about the state of the nation and where we stand as a country. Joining me on this, we have Igo Akeriga, who is a member Nigerian Guild of Editors. Good morning and welcome back to the show.
It's always a pleasure. Good
We
morning.
also have Ahmed Peter, who is the National Secretary, CUPP. Good morning,
Good morning.
and thanks for coming back on the show.
My pleasure.
So, I want to start with you, Ahmed Peter. As a country, where do you think we are headed, particularly viewing all that Nigerians have gone through for the past 2 years?
I think it's just that we need to have stability in our policy making process. We need to be able to have a National Assembly that is awake to its responsibility, that will be able to act as check and balance to the executive, and have the judiciary that will make laws, that will interpret the laws in a way that it was intended to be from, the National Assembly, lawmaking process. So we need to have all this is well established, because you can't have economic policy that is not governed by legal framework that is sustainable, that is firm, and that is dependable. Because we can't have people, investors coming into the country who believe that they will not be able to get justice when their business interest is maligned, who believe that the security agency will not be there to protect them. You can see the worsening security situation, especially in the North Central, where we currently, from Benue to Plateau. So as a country, we need to have a policy direction, and then have a well-designed security architecture. Because one very important thing about investors everywhere, that's why you see American embassies, British embassies, German embassies, we always issue advisory that their citizens should not travel to certain countries, they shouldn't go to certain areas. So we need to have this security issue resolved, because investors will not come to a place where their life is not secure. And that's why the Constitution made it very clear that the primary purpose of governance, very primary, very important, because upon this primary purpose, other foundations will be built, is security of life and property. Because if you have the security, you will have prosperity, because people will be able to go to farm without being afraid. I grew up in the rural community in my village, and I used to go to farm with my grandmother, and then stay in that farm. She will go home and try to. I will be the only one in that thick forest, and nothing ever happened. But can any family or parent allow that to happen today? So we are looking at a situation where it is supposed to be an emergency. I think if our president take this seriously, it should be time to declare emergency in the security subsector, put up the security chiefs on their toe. If they are not getting results, there are a lot of army officers that are very capable, that are determined. There are a lot of Air Force officers and naval personnel that can work this out. I was doing business in the military environment when Nigerian Army went to Darfur. I was also living at 63 Reference Hospital when Nigeria went to Liberia. So I know the commitment of our forces in trying to check the security issue, but do they have the necessary morale? Do they have the necessary encouragement from government to be able to give them that, yes, we're interested in quality this project? Security is very key. We need to set up that direction so that investors can come here without being afraid. Places like Ghana, Kenya are now becoming a center for tourism, for relaxation and relocation of people, blacks from America to their community, where we have more tourism potential. We have Yankari Game Reserve, we have Ekosi waterfall, we're in Ekiti, everywhere. So we can have this huge potential, have these huge resources, and then be lacking behind, because there's an issue because of lack of policy direction and policy inconsistency. These are the issues that have affected our trajectory as a people, as a nation, and economically, we are not doing very well, because today, when a nation that can't feed himself, despite having one of the very fertile arable land, is in crisis, because the largest contributor to our inflationary data is the food inflation. How can we be having food inflation in a country that have Benue, that have Kogi, that have Niger? So we shouldn't have food inflation, because we need to. People say governors are also culpable in these issues of not investing federal allocation, fake money that comes to them properly, to also be able to help the federal government to boost food production. But what is the direction? We have a country that 90% of whatever policies that is going to be redirected are almost directed by the president. We're almost running a unity federalism, which is not something that is even known to any kind of government system. So we need to have this system that works and work only for the interest of the general populace that are suffering today, that are, look at the salary separation. People couldn't afford ram. People are talking of buying camel. So we can't continue to go down. And people at the aim of affairs say, oh, they are protesting and we're here enjoying. So it doesn't make sense to me. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of Nigerians on the street of this country.
Igor, Ahmed has spoken a lot about policies in particular. I would like to know, what recent government policy do you believe has had the most significant impact, whether positively or negatively?
Well, there are a couple of government policies that have whether impacted positively and negatively. Let me just put it that way. I think the most recent is basically, which is still the very first policy pronouncement by the president, that of issue of energy security, fuel. Peter has said so much. Basically, what are the issues in Nigeria? What are Nigerians confronted with? He rightly identified almost all of them. Basically, we have a problem of hunger in this country. Hunger is a critical factor. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of need, food, survival is the first instinct. Man must survive, and to survive, you must eat. So the president said, oh, food should come in, and indeed there is a trickle of food import that is coming, and local farmers are complaining that is affecting, their production cost, But I think it's a good policy overall. While the president has ordered that food should come in, what I would have thought, in my view, is that the farming environment has to be secured so that local production can be spiked. Once you get to an average production point, then you can stop food import. But I don't see that happening. So that correlation is not there. That inconsistency policy, it then rears its head, because once you are saying food should come in, and at the same time you are talking about patronage of local production, and you are not creating the enabling environment for that to be sustained, that for me is something that the policymakers will need to work on and get it right. Farmers must be secured to be able to produce more food. And food inflation, as he also mentioned, is a critical factor that has affected the life of Nigerians, such that almost everything we do as Nigerians revolve around food consumption. Whether you want to eat yam, you want to eat gari, whether you want to eat rice, spam, or anything. I just traveled from the Niger Delta. You could see hunger everywhere. You could see despondency on the faces of people, and you could see that people who ordinarily wouldn't come begging you. They come, begging every day. I see account numbers coming into my phone, and I just ask myself, that is a clear indices of an economy that is really not doing well. So for me, the president has to do that. Well, interestingly, we are beginning to see a gradual reduction in the price of fuel. But again, that one is driven by private sector investment by Dangote. If Dangote didn't, set up his refinery, when it was in the hands of government monopoly, NNPC, we saw what happened. At some point, we were buying, they're almost heading for 1,500 naira for a liter of fuel. But with Dangote, competition came in, almost like what happened in the telecom sector, where those days you're having the 999 or whatever, where you have to walk kilometers to go and make phone calls. But with the entrance of the Globacom, MTN, Airtel, and all, you then saw that competition came in. I think that is also what is happening in the petroleum sector. So fundamentally, the president has his work cut out. He has to deal with the issue of insecurity in the country. It is spiking. As we speak, Enugu State, part of Imo State, is in the hands of people whom they call herdsmen. For me, I do not think these are herdsmen. These are criminals, these are terrorists that we opened our gates, our borders for to come in. So the government must develop the political will to send them back to wherever they come from. Abraka in Delta State, we saw what happened in the last 2 days. They invaded communities, and the communities have to rise. The police division in Abraka rose to the occasion, and that's what we expect our security forces to do. They confronted them and then eliminated 4 of them. And you now saw sympathy coming from you know, the ethnic stock of these individuals. It shows that there's some kind of collaboration between those who are living in the towns and those who are in the bush. So the government must deal with this. The interesting thing here is that he mentioned the issue of Benue, which is the food basket of the country. The chief of army, Mr. Leonard Geraluyede, has relocated to Benue State, as I know, and that is what we should be doing. Leadership should be at the forefront. You don't stay in Abuja and then tell your troops to go in there. Go and lead from the front, and he's doing that. I think since he went in there, I've seen some measure of stability. So across all areas, whether it is Plateau State, it's in Katsina, it's in the northeast, it's in Borno, where the governor every day is shouting himself hoarse that, you know, almost 80 communities are in the hands of terrorists. We cannot have a country, a sovereign country, you know, where a component, a part of that country is in the hands of non-state actors. So for me, the president should do something about that. Well, I must also give it to him. From what we saw in the past, when presidents give marching orders, we do not see the commanders, that is the military commanders, taking action. But President Tinubu has each time he holds these meetings with the defense chiefs, we see action, we see things happening. But I just think, for me, I also think that there's some foreign component, foreign collaboration component in what is happening in Nigeria. That is an area that the president must look at. Look at countries that are feeding these terrorists, follow the money that is fueling terrorism, follow those who are supplying them food, block them. There's nothing wrong in shutting our borders for 3 months, for example. Shut the borders, the entire borders in the northeast, shut the borders in the west, because we'll see that this thing is spreading to Togo, Benin Republic. It means that they are gradually moving. When they see heat in one area, they move to another area. So the government must be up and doing, develop policies that can curtail this. It's only in Nigeria that it appears that the issue of fighting terrorism has become business, you know, such that we have. Why is Cameroon quiet? Why is Cameroon calm? Why is Ghana calm? Why is Equatorial Guinea calm? Why is it that the focus is on Nigeria? There's so much happening here that our people can't even move about freely. Like I said, I just came from the Niger Delta. You travel by train from Kogi State to Warri, for example. From Abuja to Kogi State, your heart is in your mouth. And people are even asking, why is the government unable to run the rail track from Itakpe to Abuja? Why do you leave that gap? So you just do rail line and cut areas and leave. So there is very disjointed policy, transport policy, such that it's affecting the people. So I'm sure that those in charge are listening to us this morning. We cannot completely say that the government has failed on all fours. They are doing their best, but I think Nigerians just feel that the effort of the government is not enough at this point.
Speaking of efforts of the government, what or how would you say the leaders are responding to the challenges of Nigerians? Do you think they actually are hearing Nigerians, and do you think they're actually doing something to ease the burden that Nigerians are facing?
I always say for a fact that when he talked about General Louis relocating to Benue, that these are reactionary measures. They are reactionary because if they listen, they should have a proper structure in place to arrest these menace. You can't be reacting as a government. There's no terrorist organization in the world or anyone that would be more powerful than the people and the arm with most terror resources is the government. The government have all resources at its disposal to terrorize those terrorists and make sure that they are uncomfortable in whatever space they find themselves. So if the government is not doing that enough, and if you look at policies, I think when you have policies that are just mentioned on national TV or used as a midterm broadcast, you tend to want to praise it. You can't have to come to government. If you look at what Akinwumi Adesina did with agricultural investment, like making sure fertilizer gets to the farmer with the telephone scheme that was applied, which the APC came and then disrupted the process and then put us back to ground zero when it comes to agricultural investment. You look at how progressive that idea was. Why do you have to cancel it when government is a continuum? I don't understand. Why didn't you cancel other projects that were done in previous government? But people are looking. One of the things with people coming to government in Nigeria, especially under the APC, is they are looking for short projects that they can use to do television drama, and then do that. Oh, they have commissioned something that to show that there's a little bit of progress when none exists. So you can't have a situation when the president have gone on TV when he came to power and said, look, for every year or something, I'll be cultivating 500,000 hectares of land for agriculture, and he hasn't even tilled 1 hectare. So these are policy inconsistencies that I talk about. And you people talk about, importation, that he has opened up the border. It's bad for our country. Because we are invested so much in agriculture prior before the ascendancy of APC to the presidency, to make sure that our farmers can cultivate rice and then do local production of rice, local production of other materials, so that we can have raw materials from ethanol, from cassava and the rest to export. So if you open up the border today, you are killing local investment in agriculture, because you bring out rice and try to want to crash the price of rice in order to show that the food inflation is dropping. You are also killing those who have put so much money in rice cultivation in Nigeria. So the government must have a proper plan in place, because the gestation for rice production, rice planting and harvesting, it doesn't take time. It's like within 3 months. So you can do it about 4 times in a year. So why would the president not put so much money in that direction, so that Nigerians can be, to move towards self-sufficiency in agricultural investment? So look, if the president wants to make things work, it's not difficult. If the president and his team are interested to see that Nigeria, prosper, there are a lot of people, advice that have gone in that direction. You can't talk about what the Niger State governor, he has been talking about how he wants to invest. How many tractors do you have for the farmers in this country? We don't have. If you want to compete with places like India, compete with places like Thailand, they have companies that manufacture tractors in their country, so they can even do better. So are we investing in those directions? Are we looking at local? Look, it is not the first country in the world where government try to put money into private sector, so that the private sector can be able to produce what will make the government and the people comfortable. Even during Obama, when the banks were crashing, there was support from government to the banks. When the auto companies were going down, the big auto companies in America, there was support to them. So Nigerians must look at, what is Innocent Motors doing? What is not Motors doing? What are they doing? How can we sit down and then look that we can do this to make sure that Nigerians and those who earn below 70,000 naira, below 70,000 naira, can actually live a better quality of life? During the Obasanjo days, do you know those who work as soldiers, as corporal, sergeant, can buy cars? Those who work as police personnel can buy cars. Do you know how much is the cost of Corolla that has been used 3 times in a foreign land in Nigeria today? So we are not progressing at all. All the indices point to the fact that the economy is doing very badly. The people are not doing very well. The transport system that they are supposed to be able to make sure that the infrastructure is properly put in place before removing fuel subsidy, so that they'll be able to cushion the effect, whatever negative effect that will come from fuel subsidy removal wasn't done. So you don't have ST policy announcement and pronouncement and expect that you have a better result out of it. So we can have a reactionary measures towards trying to establish a ground progress for our people. We must sit down, look at how is it possible for a federal civil service to serve and then have a home for himself. Like for the army, they have at the time they came up with a post-housing scheme, military post-housing scheme, which is now beyond the ability of those who were it was meant for to be able to afford. The same thing with Federal Housing Authority. Federal Mortgage Authority are not giving loan to civil servants, they're giving loan to estate managers and the rest that will sell houses at 40 million, 50 million. Which of the public service, civil servant will be able to afford that? So we need to have policy that will drive. People talk about Lincoln. It took him time, and it was a very dedicated policy implementation and direction that his government put into a place that have made Singapore what it is today. So you can't have what you have a situation where you do policy somersault, where you go about making pronouncement that does not reflect the true situation that Nigerians are facing. See, on the street there's so much pain. People are just trying to come here or welcome here tonight, not to raise the fears of those on the street that things aren't working. We tried our best to be moderate, to try to discuss the challenges that confronting our people. But the truth is that there are true challenges, because there's nothing that has not increased. As rent, people who are renting houses, their house rent has doubled. People who pay transport can no longer afford to transport. If you go about in this country, if you start in that Nikon Transcorp junction, you will see people jumping into how they call it, pickup. just to be able to reduce the cost of transport in FCT, Federal Capital Territory. So imagine what is happening in Mokwa, what is happening in Olamaboro, what is happening in Ida. So these are the challenges our country has. We have no provision for rural development. And if you look at statistics that 71.5% of rural dwellers are living in abject poverty. Even in the urban center, there's about 41%, 45% of them. So we have a challenge that we must sit down and look at the positive result coming from. Say, oh, you have done remove fuel subsidy and you're having applause for it. What are the negative tendencies that have accompanied this policy and that further impoverish our people? These are the things that should be, redirected and then treated with us, giving all the attention necessary. Because you can't have something billion for humanitarian service budget, and then people are not getting the necessary support that they need in various communities to live better life and then provide for their children and others.
That's a very fair point, which leads me to my next question, Igo. Let's talk governance and accountability. How would you assess this current government's performance so far in regards to governance and accountability?
Well, for me, I think there's also too much focus on the federal government. Nigeria is a federating unit where you have the subnationals, the states.
Let's not forget the local governments too. Let's also not forget the local governments in all of this.
So in dissecting the challenges confronting Nigeria as a country, we must also examine the performance of the subnational, whether it's the states and the local government. I think what we have in this country is a structural problem. The problem that is rooted in the very document we call our Constitution. The drafters of the Constitution perhaps didn't take into cognizance that a time will come when the complexities arising from even the Constitution itself will become a challenge and a problem. So if we want to practice true federalism, it means that more powers have to be devolved to the states. Now, there's more money coming to the states. What are the states doing with the money? Because each time we talk about the problem of Nigeria, we appear to want to concentrate so much effort and throw the challenges at the doorstep of the president, whether it is Tinubu or any other person. I think for me that is even a problem. Because now when the monies that come into the collective basket is shared by everybody, including the states and the local government. So what do they do with this money? Just 3 days ago, India commissioned 273 kilometers of railroad from New Delhi to Kashmir, the India-controlled aspect of Kashmir. You know, Kashmir is divided into two. Pakistan controls one side. And when I saw the visuals of that railway that was constructed, it was so high that, the narrative was that it's even 30 meters higher than the Eiffel Towers in France. Over a very deep valley. That cannot happen in Nigeria. So while we are locating the problems, we are trying to say, okay, the federal government has its own share of the blame. I also think that the states have their problem. Now, without running foul of the logic of generalization, fallacy of generalization, to say that, there's non-performance everywhere. For me, I like to look at the issue, segment it. If you pick some states in Nigeria, you look at their performance indices, you cannot help but agree that those states are taking the right steps to advance the cause of their people. Take a look, for example, at Abia State, where, it's the Labour Party, the governor there belongs to the Labour Party. You could see that the governor of Abia State has provided uninterrupted power supply to Aba and this environment. Don't forget, Aba is the commercial hub of that state. So uninterrupted power supply has generated, it has trickled jobs and made jobs available to many people, including traders. That is what we want to see. Now, if you also look at even Rivers State before Fubara was removed as governor, Rivers State was taking the right steps, whether in terms of infrastructure, in terms of health, in terms of education. That was that was the state that was also doing well. Enugu State, where you have Peter Mba, Enugu State used to be Coal City those days, historically Coal City. But after Coal, what did Enugu become? Enugu almost became a civil service state where people just go to work, earn their salary. But you have this young man who is governor who came in and has become innovative, very creative, and you could see quality infrastructure that is being built in that state. And then my own state of Delta, For the very first time, Delta is almost more than 32 years it was created. Julius Berger is reputed to be one of the best construction firms in the country. It's working day and night in Delta State. The last time I was shocked to see the quality of roads and bridges that were being built by Governor Sheriff Oborewori of the state. So whether it is health, whether it is child and child mortality rate and support for the healthcare education, it is just so some of the subnationals are doing very, very well. Now the boss comes back to the federal government. What are the duties of the federal government to citizens? For me, I want to look at the issues of security because the president is the chief security officer of the state. All the instruments of coercion are in his hands, even though the constitution pretends that the governors are chief security officers of their state. For me, that's a pretentious supposition in the constitution that try to create powers in the hands of a governor, non-existent powers. Let me just put it that way. Because if a state is confronted with insecurity, what the governors do is to run to Abuja to come and beg the president to, to send order the police, increase the military presence. That is not how to run a country. I would have thought that. That's why I talked about devolution of more powers to the states, such that the issue of state police now has gone cold. The speed with which the issue was discussed, many states assented to it. I do not know what is happening now. By now, we should have issue of state police resolved. Benue should have their own state police to deal with issues of internal security in Benue State. Same with Plateau State. Same with other states. Whether it's in Katsina, it's in Zamfara, it's in Enugu, anywhere, we should have state police. The fear that if state police is created, it will be misused by political elites, in this case the governors. So why is the president not misusing the federal police? So for me, it is the same thing. Let us give it a try, because the fear of even not trying at all is worse than failure. So let us bring to fruition the issue of state police. Let the governor take charge of the security of that state, create more food, create a safe environment for production to take place, stabilize the economic environment so that investment can come into the various states and the country can move forward. So for me, generally speaking, while we are putting the blame in the doorsteps of the federal government, we should also be focusing more on the subnationals, including the local governments. The last time, the Supreme Court ruled that more for the local government fund should be paid directly to the accounts of local government. Again, nobody is saying anything about it. We don't know which local government has received funds directly from federal allocation. So we come up with policies that we don't intend to push through. I think that is one of the key challenges that we face. Once there's a policy issue, the Supreme Court has ruled, I would expect that within 1 week or 2 weeks, it should be implemented. We have beautiful policies. There are even grandiose laws in the Constitution that we are not implementing. Nigeria is the only country in the world that I know of that operates two central laws, two constitutional laws. In the north, you have the penal code. In the south, you have the criminal code. Yet, we say we are one country. Now, we say we don't have state police. You have the Hisba police in the north that is enforcing Sharia laws. In the south, the federal police operate. So we keep having these policies that does not align, that seems to create more confusion. If we want to run a country, we run a country. If we want to run, like Hong Kong and China, when we say one country, two policies, there, let us agree. It should be embedded in the Constitution. So we must get our Constitution right. The National Assembly should sit up. The Senate President, the Speaker of the House of Reps, a lot of expectation by Nigerians lay in their hands. I do not see so much effort being made by the current National Assembly. I have not seen any progressive law that they have passed that has impacted positively on the life of Nigerians. So when people talk about the president, for me, I want to also look at the other institutions that is supposed to create stability, create a safe environment, whether for investment, for the stability of the country, for the quality of life of the citizens. And that lies in the hands of the National Assembly. If the National Assembly is doing well, look at what has happened in the U.S., for example. The U.S. Congress, how the Republicans and the Democrats, are also, consolidated their own powers to checkmate President Donald Trump, including the judiciary of the United States, with all the tariffs that President Trump has put in place. The judiciary simply sat and said, you cannot just unilaterally, impose tariffs, including the allies and friends of the U.S., and expect that the U.S. is going to have peace. And the judiciary started upturning and reversing some of Trump's policies. So the Nigerian judiciary should be alive to its responsibilities. The National Assembly should be alive to its responsibilities. If they are all alive, I do not think that the president can exercise so much power and then attract so much blame also to himself.
Okay, so before we go, I'd like to hear from both of you. What message would you like to pass to Nigerians in order to navigate these current realities? Because it's not easy, and I know both of you also face what every other Nigerian is also facing, but how can we navigate right now while we're waiting for implementation by the government, and hopefully they're listening to us?
I think for me, it made a lot of very important points. And today, Abia State, is the Abia State governor campaigning for himself or going about saying this is what I've done? But on the street of Nigeria, whether you are from Lagos, Aba, or you are from Anambra, people are praising him for what he has done. So you can't have government in place and you expect praise, or you expect people to give you applause, and then you're not doing things that will, reduce the level of pain and poverty on the street of this country. So it is not about we come here or to wish they want to be able to put pressure on to continue to say government hasn't done anything. It is even left for government to even show what they've done. They can't even, for 2 years, the government can't even project anything that this is what they've done. But for Nigerians have always been very cooperative. They've always continued to adjust their pain, capacity to endure bad governance instead of trying to engage it. I think what the Nigerian citizens have failed to do is that they gradually, eventually, start to disengage from government and think that the only responsibility they hold to government is to try to, to vote. You need to engage government after election. You need to come to ask pertinent questions and how is government running the affairs of this country? Where is the accountability? See, people talk about road building and bridge building. Even the military was doing that. So that's why we say democracy. Democracy is different from military regime, from monarchy and all that, because all these things you are talking about is done under this other kind of government. But if you have democracy, democracy demands a lot of other very important things from for those operators and those who are in charge. It demands accountability, it demands transparency, it demands the fact that open governance process must be known to people. You can't have, you are building a road today. Yes, the road will bring open the coastal communities to proper investment, to accessibility and all that. But no Nigerian today know the cost of that project. No, we don't even have the Appropriation Act that gave funding to that project. And you said we should come and not ask questions. So Nigerians must continue to ask questions and put their government in check and continue to seek that those in the National Assembly who have, the 10th National Assembly is the worst performing National Assembly we have had since 1999 because they are purely spineless. They don't want to do any other thing apart from, saying on your mandate to stand for the president. So these are co-equal arm of government that have the same authority as the government. Theirs is to make good laws and development of this country. How many of these laws that they've made? How many of the motions they have moved that the president have even acknowledged? Because the president does not see them like people who can bite. They are only there to back and not do anything beneficial to that will uplift the life of the ordinary man in Nigeria. So it's very important that we continue to engage those who have elected at federal constituency level, at the State House of Assembly level, and at the state government level. But you talk about local government. Where is the power that local government gets? There's a local government state and local government joint account. Well, even the Supreme Court judgment, you don't have to wait for the Attorney General to give directive for the implementation of Supreme Court judgment. That's how you see that our Supreme Court and our court have been weakened by executive recklessness, because you cannot have to say, oh, we need to give process and when it to be implemented. No, the Supreme Court judgment is judgment from our Supreme Court, and it should take effect the moment the pronouncement came, not 2 weeks, not 3 weeks, and not 6 months after. So if we continue to disrespect institutions like the Supreme Court, then we continue to weaken democratic governance, because democracy is different. You can have road in the military regime, people can construct bridge in the military regime, but for democracy, it's both infrastructure and the rule of law. So these are very important part of democratic governance that we are missing. And we must join the two together and marry them in a way that it will work and work for the benefit of our people.
Ego, how about you?
For me, the pathway forward, for us as a nation is for the political elites to have the political will, to start implementing, and developing policies that will positively affect the lives of Nigerians. Now, what we see currently is a convergence of elite conspiracy, against the Nigerian people, such that, oh, you bring money to the center, people just share those monies, they are not accountable to anyone. Don't forget, during the period of when former President Olusegun Obasanjo was president, I think up until even the tenure of President Goodluck Jonathan, you saw allocation to states being published in newspapers. People could see that this amount went to this state, even to the local government. The figures were published. Who received what and where it went were published. But from 2015 to date, we could see a growing and increasing opaqueness in governance processes. And that has eroded the confidence of Nigerians, in the democratic process. And the president, this morning, I need to say this, he must not forget that what brought him to power is just about 26.5% of the votes. That is not enough. That is not it's not a good mandate for any president, to embark on policies that will further alienate him from the people. I would have thought that with that kind of mandate that is weak, the president should rather gravitate more to implementing pro-people policies, such that the people will become more interested in the governance process, will become more attracted to him, and as we move towards 2017, he does not need to go on TV. Let your projects, programs, and infrastructure do the campaign for you. When people, Confucius, the Chinese philosopher, did say that when the intention of a leader is good, that the quality of life, the life of the people itself will be good. So what is the intention of Nigerian leaders? Is it bad? Is it good? In my opinion this morning is that it is difficult to say that the intention of Nigerian leaders is, you can approximate it to a positive intention, because if it is positive, we shouldn't be paying so much for electricity at this point, we shouldn't be paying so much for fuel, we shouldn't be paying so much for food. So these are areas that the leadership must look at, so that Nigeria begin to have some respite.
Thank you very much, Igo, and thank you very much, Peter. It's always good to have you here, and we always have insightful conversations, and we hope the leadership is listening. When we say the leadership, not just the federal government, the state and the local government as well. I remember Nigerians, always hold your leaders accountable from the top down. That's what we can take right now for the political segment. We still have so much more coming up on the weekend show. Do stay with us, and we're moving on now to Entrepreneur Spotlight with Tender.